Slenderman. Oh wait, Slender the Arrival. It's easier to say Slenderman. Game was good. The only other like indie horror game I even bothered to review was Paranormal Activity. Was it called The Lost Ones or something? And I was debating on even doing one with Slender Man, because like, but Slender Man is, you know, popular and very well known, and so yeah, that could be cool. I've had this game for a while now, and I know Homeboy played it years ago, right? And that's how a lot of people even know the game probably exists, but that's how I knew it exists. I feel like it's a very hidden gem, underrated game. But what's interesting is it's kind of like Paranormal Activity. It's very licensable. What was it? Creepypasta, Slender? I don't know. And there was a time where I went down that rabbit hole with Siren Head and SCP, blah blah blah. Yeah, I never watched a whole lot of actual gameplay of it, or I watched some of Homie play a little bit, but not like the whole thing or whatever, and all I knew about ahead of time was the pages. But I had this game for a while and just waiting to kind of find a good time to play it. Found it on sale. I almost got the next gen version of it, but I only did the last gen because I didn't know if I was gonna like it or not. But this game is like actually pretty good. As in, like, the scares were there, it was scary, but I still had a tough time with the controls and the gameplay, the graphics. You know, it's not magical or anything. But you know that ahead of time going in, so... But I really, man, I don't know. It was only a 2.5 hour game, too, for me, so... And I grabbed as much stuff as I could have, like I scoured everything. I got a little lost at first because I just didn't know where to go and it was so dark, and I was trying to mess with the brightness settings, and it's really not a hard, complicated game to play. The only part that made it kind of difficult was just kind of navigating and knowing where to go and what to do, and I didn't really have any context, or I just kind of jumped in, and it's almost spooky season, and I actually played this for Friday the 13th. That's right, that's the only reason why I played this now instead of like next month for Halloween in October, because that's normally probably when I would have played something like that. Just would have made the most sense. But no, I was actually pretty surprised at how good it was. Like, it was scary. Some of it was. The audio design... I'm trying not to give like too much away, but... Yeah... I mean, at the very beginning, it really did start off kind of like a haunted house type thing, which normally those are the kind of indie horrors that I like, is something demonic, something paranormal, shadow people, figures, you know, voices, EVPs, just faces, and even hallucinations maybe. Because that's some of the things that I've seen personally that just scare the living crap out of me. I love games like this and Visage and games that actually, the reason why I play games like, well, a lot of this game took place in the woods and stuff, but whatever. You know, Blair Witch, I did that as well. Oh yeah, that was another little indie horror game I did. But it's just, I don't know. The haunted house genre really, you know, when it comes to indie horrors, I feel like people just kind of play anything. Oh, this looks okay, this looks good, whatever. And maybe there's some sort of house involved at some point, sure, just like any. That is kind of the go-to, but I can't stop referring back to that whole month a couple years ago or so where I played nothing but scary indie horror games. And I'm glad I picked the ones that I did because they all had some kind of house. They were all things happening and doors closing and shutting, and the issue that I'm getting at is that people always kind of see it as like a jump scare thing. It's not just about jump scares, it's actually generally creepy. Like things lurking out at you and things you see in your peripheral vision and oh, things that hide in the shadows and go bump in the night. The things you can't see, that's what's scary. And you know, whether people like it or not, jump scares are always going to be a thing. Okay, that just, you gotta throw that in there. That's what defines the genre. And sure, if something is purely jump scary, even I don't like that. But that's not the type of stuff that I'm playing. That's what I'm trying to emphasize here is that, you know, this is a lot really close to something I would have handpicked myself if I didn't know about it ahead of time. Because I just thought it was super cool, like seeing something so familiar brought to life in a video game, and the immersion and the interaction. You get so used to seeing Slenderman through documentaries and you know, YouTube videos, and it's always just kind of like tidbits of information, like, oh, this is what really happened, this is the true story, and this is like, you know, it's a myth, a folktale, a folklore, legend, yada yada. It's so many things. It's this blank, expressionless, tall, skinny businessman with tentacles coming out of him. And I can respect it because I really like masks. So, you know, he doesn't have an identity. He doesn't have a face. He's just there. He's the epitome of, he's like this agent of hell, or like this, I don't know much about the lore specifically, but, you know, he's a demon in my eyes. He just happens to take this form. And I just love the like sock over the head, blank white. And the fact that he's like a businessman. I don't know, there's definitely deeper stuff to look into there. Just the design of him and, you know, corporations and money, maybe even that's what it's coming down to, or how scary it is, or the industry being corrupt, or who knows. I just love that there's kind of layers of a discussion to have with this guy. And for there to be a video game totally makes sense, because why wouldn't there be? Yeah, I don't know, it's just a weird good time. Like, it was hard and I was getting frustrated and mad and angry and I was getting hot, and because it was just, I hate playing a game where it's like, at least with good graphics, that's a whole nother thing, is why people give, like, oh, the game's not just about graphics. Well, it definitely helps. Okay? And having it, like, this is, if I got the next gen version, I would have been able to play this and been able to just see a little bit better. And now that I do like this game, honestly, I might, next time at least it's on sale, I might get the next gen version and just play it again. That'd give me an excuse to not only play it this first initial time, but I liked it enough. And yeah, it's short and it's a little expensive base price, but it discounted isn't too bad. And I don't know how much of a difference there's really going to be, because yeah, it's going to be upscaled, but they always say that, like, oh, but it's a next gen version, but that doesn't mean it's going to look like AAA quality, you know? But if it just helps me kind of get through the game a little bit easier. But one reason why I was drawn to the last gen version, since I had it anyway, I was like, well, I can rationalize it as in, what do you think of when you think of indie horror games? Like gritty and raw and not the best graphics and static and, you know, that's just for some reason what scary stuff is kind of glorified to be as, I guess. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not like something like worse graphics or worse like B movies doesn't make a movie like scarier. When you think of like an old game or an old movie, it's scary because it was made in such a different time in the darker days and just different equipment and technology. But even with what we have now, 4K TVs and next-gen consoles and 40, 90, 50, 90 graphic cards or whatever the hell's going on with all that, you know, you have the power to still play a good-looking game, and it can be just as scary. So that's why, even talking about it now, that's probably what's going to decide me to get that next-gen version. I was probably just going to drop it where it is, but... So I don't know, it's a good and bad thing that I played the last gen one, because like, there are pros and cons there. But I think about if I had a little bit of a better experience playing the next gen version, just because of the fact that that is available and it's a thing, it would have just been the more best route for me to go. If I ever find a game that I like, and if there's a better version of it out there, I'm gonna get that, normally. But when I went into this, I was like, well, is it gonna be is it just gonna be another confusing indie horror game where I'm lost and confused and yeah, that was very apparent, but it was so good because of what it offered that it made up for all that. And that's usually what I try to look for is, you know, in video games, they have a standard. There's always a standard there where they gotta at least be good in some form or another, whether it's the graphics or the story or this or that, characters, setting. Because these things don't just kind of pop up out of nowhere, and things aren't just made on a whim or fully released to the public. They do have to meet some kind of quality reassurance, just like anything. So, that's always something good to keep in mind. Yeah, I was just, I don't know. I was frightened. It was a little slow at first, but it did start to pick up, and there was only really a couple of key parts that just got me like, nope. The only the biggest downside for me, other than the obvious, like everything I pretty much just said, was just the psychological part of it. I'm not really into psychological thrillers or horrors. Because the issue I have with those is there's just too much going on. It's just chaos and blurred and I can't see or... And I kind of get that they're trying to get that to come across. Like if these things were actually real or happening, like fear, that's something that happens every day to everybody. There's always going to be this kind of warping, like, distortioned vision of the reality around you. But my issue with that is that they lean and depend on that so much up to a point where it's just like it's almost like unplayable. When parts like that did happen, I was just like, dude, where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I playing this? I thought it was going to be a waste of time. I thought it was going to last a lot longer. I kind of wanted it to, but I am pretty glad it only lasted as long as it did. Because I pretty much got my fix. I get it. You know, move on. But no, it was, I don't know, I'm sitting here wanting to, like, really praise it, but I can't do that at the same time because it did have a lot of issues for me. But, the gameplay's good. Yeah, there really wasn't much for like cutscenes necessarily. Like you get some small animations here and there, but I was really surprised. There was a little bit of voice acting. I just assumed it was like one of the devs, you know, making a little recording or I don't know. I don't know much about the games I play. I just kind of play them and come up with my own outtakes, and I don't try to look into stuff too much. But I don't know. I'm still shocked at how good the game actually was. It's something that kind of stays with you. If not for the rest of the day or that night, like the next day, maybe fading away within that week, but man. Yeah, it's one thing if you're playing it completely in the dark, all by yourself, all alone. All I had on was a couple lights and my red lights, and yeah. It's weird because Slenderman's like the front guy, right? He's the face of... He really is like a brand or a franchise or a series, whatever you want to call him. But it wasn't even Slenderman that scared me. It was like everything else. And it was interesting to see all these other elements within this Slenderman game, because you think it's so much about him, but obviously it's a game. It has to have some kind of a story. What I was expecting was they were gonna throw in like those two little girls, you know. I was like, this is gonna be weird, man. I didn't want to like get spoiled ahead of time, and I just kind of wanted to... I go in blind for a lot of my first playthroughs. I don't care what it is. And I try to stay away from trailers and this and that, but... So yeah, once again, I was just surprised and surprised and surprised. Like, oh, Slendy's actually kind of frightening. You never really saw him move around in motion or get brought to life in this kind of way, because usually it's pictures, it's, you know, fan-made stuff ultimately, and it's never really anything like over the top, or I'm not sure what all other Slenderman stuff is out there that I don't know about. I'm sure there's plenty of it, but you know, you'll see like PNG versions of him, or realistic drawings, or photographs. Pretty much just all... He's so weird because he's so real. Like, that's kind of his whole backstory, is like he is this actual thing that exists, right? Supposedly to these kids or something. But he's clearly like one of the most made up things you could possibly think of. Right next to Siren Head and all them. Like, there's just no way this is real, right? But it's so believable. I mean, I don't know. What are the odds of me, like, walking into the woods one day? Oh, it's Slenderman. Oh, okay. I don't know if he only targets kids or... And another interesting thing in this game, it kind of got swept under the rug quite a bit, actually, but there was actually, like, a story. There's all kinds of lore to pick up and collectibles, and I read all of it. And I was actually kind of blown away the effort that went into kind of creating this sort of format of... It's kind of like... It reminded me of Silent Hill a little bit. You know, it was really about its setting and the town and the location, and it wasn't really about something too, like, specific that someone's trying to just put out there. They really focused on the land and the history, and I think that was really nice to... Because especially watching as many paranormal investigations as I have, and that kind of being my go-to scary thing other than whatever else. It was nice to see that get some love, where they're just kind of... They're just talking about... And even Silent Hill, it's the same thing. It's an actual place. So I know we all live like real things and actual, like inspired by true events and based on real occurrences, and that stuff's really interesting. Obviously, it's gonna grip you and hook you and catch you, versus just something totally made up, as interesting as stuff like that can be. But this was just such a combination of so many different things, like the realism and the references it reminded me of, and the creepy factor, and I was actually really excited to make this video today and talk about him, because there's so much surrounding this guy that it's nice to actually have something to go off of, like something more than just the game or some original IP, or you know, because there's always going to be so many things involved in all these projects that get put together to make it happen. Someone out there, this is their job, is to release these things to the world and provide us with that entertainment we all know and love and enjoy and want. There's no higher demand for anything other than entertainment, man. You know, buildings have been built. You know, what's left? But yeah, it didn't really fit. I would have rather played like Friday the 13th, the actual game, the Jason multiplayer PvP online matchmaking game. But you know, when it's Friday the 13th, any game can work. I just thought this was a great one to play. It was the only kind of indie horror game that I have too. So between the day I played it, everything that happened that night, the experience I got from it, what I took out from it, the messages and signals that the game gave me, and what I kind of left having that still kind of in my head, it was really impressive. I'm shocked that like a little game like this can even take it that far. That's what makes a good game nowadays, is, or at all, is, you know, I feel like there's so many games out there, but they're not all good. This is really like a work of art. Like they packed so much into something so small, and you can really tell they care. You know, all the usual, the spiel, right? Like, oh, the small team, bless them, oh, they did such a good job with working with so little, yada yada. I don't want to like diminish them like that or make them sound so little or meaningless or small, because like that's definitely not the case. I wish I'd support indie games more than I do. But unfortunately, the way the world works is it is kind of just easier to play these kind of bigger AAA games, and you do get that money's worth out of it. And for some people, this is all they play all day every day, stuff like this, or only horror games, or only indies, or whatever. So I got really a lot of respect for that, because it's a life I don't live and it's a world I don't live in, and I always kind of imagine what it's like to be somebody else and put myself in their shoes, and what would it be like to be them, and to be this whole other person and be interested in so many different things, but yet somehow we still kind of have this one thing in common. And yeah, it's kind of neat. Like, dude, I've known Slenderman. Slenderman's part of, and Homeboy, I don't even have to say his name, everyone knows who it is. You know, I can honestly say that Slenderman was like part of the reason why I started even streaming or making videos or creating content fully, or that made me take it seriously and do more of it and be consistent and whatever. It's because before finally really sitting down and committing, you know, Slenderman, this game specifically, one of only a few, well, that I can remember, right? This is what got me through some really tough times, some dark days, and trying to figure things out and changing life things. And so this game does mean a little bit more to me than most, because it was one of those spooky games that I would listen to with nothing in my room, and I'm dealing with moving or whatever is going on, or it's raining outside, windows open, fresh air, probably about this time of the year. Like, man, there's just nothing like watching this and just kind of really being lost in the world that they gave you. And I thought it was a very different thing to actually play it myself. It's crazy. Like, I never thought it would even happen. For so long, I was like, oh, why would I ever get that game? And, you know, I have no interest in it. But it just kind of clicked one day where I was like, you know what? It sounds pretty good. And I have access to it. It's not, you know, it's on the port that I play on, so... Yeah, Slendy, he's pretty neat. Cool guy. I'm glad they didn't go with the whole like two little girls thing, because I don't think that would have been possible anyway, because that's kind of a very separate thing. But I guess the point I'm trying to make there is, like, I thought this was going to be very typical, very you know, I've seen it all, I've already heard it all. Like, what how is this game going to make what I know of Slenderman any different? But what I like about it is that it provided more context, more information, more backstory, more lore, more knowledge, more wisdom of who this character is, who this guy is. The fact that there's a game made for him at all is pretty impressive. Not everyone gets their own game. You know, people can make up 1,000 things and only one of them is ever going to get published or known to the world. Not everything makes it through, and for a reason. Just totally understandable. You know, I'm trying to... There's some issues... You don't get a lot of options. Audio... I think the only real options you get is like difficulty and... which is funny. And your gamma. At first I tried to play on default because I don't like to... Scary games, even though they're dark, I don't like to brighten up it too much because it really ruins the game. Like, if that's not how it was designed to be, then don't do it. You know, I don't care how hard it is to see, deal with it. But man, it was bad. I don't know how I got through it the way it did. I don't think it was till like halfway into that first section or towards the end of it where I finally had to do something. I was like, you know what, dude, I gotta turn this up. I'm gonna die. I don't know. So I did finally brighten it up, but it made it look really bad. So I'd recommend like half brightness. That's kind of what I did, and that was somewhat of a good sweet spot. Okay, it's not too bright, it's not too dark. Because you do have your flashlight, but you can literally only see like in that flashlight and maybe a couple other things you happen to come by. But when you're looking for stuff, when this is like an Easter egg hunt, scavenger hunt, like bro, it's just way too dark. Jesus Christ! I know like it's a scary game, it's gotta be dark, obviously, but good God. Yeah, I'm glad I found this. I'm glad I played this and not, you know, I don't resort to Outlast. I know that's kind of the go-to indie game, but I just don't think that would have had anything to really offer me. This game had a lot to give. And yeah. Slenderman. The Arrival. Boo!